Yeah, I'm just really humbled to be able to come up here and speak to you guys tonight. You know, I really, speaking, I'm not like Rob. I don't love it up here, just so you guys know that. But I love the fact that men's frat guys are here and that you guys are meeting all the time together, and I get to see you guys every week. So it's been great for me to be here. So let me just tell you how I wound up with this deal. Oh yeah, my son-in-law's got to come. So now I'm really worried I'm going to get stuff thrown at me. But anyway, I'm like an old fart. I had to I'm one of the older guys around here, and I just figured I think some other guys thought that I'd be good at being able to go through the seasons of life that we learned about last week. So I'm 63 years old, married, got 4 grandkids. I lived in Millbrae and Burlingame and San Bruno most of my life. Since I was 8, I was the first 8 years I lived in San Francisco. I was in construction almost all my life as a carpenter, and then later on as a concrete truck driver, and that's what I retired from. So I was a concrete truck driver for 35 years and retired as a Teamster. So right now, some of you guys are going, well, he was a Teamster? Can a Teamster be a Christian? Yeah. It's a great question. I'm still wondering that. But yeah, I think you can. I hope we can. So I was wondering, it'd be fun to kind of get a show of hands. We talked about these 4 seasons last week. So what guys here are in the spring season of their life? That was 0 to 20. Anybody? No, yeah. Anybody that wants to tell the truth? No. So there's nobody here. That's good. How about the second season, which was summer, 20 to 30? Wow. I thought there was more than just one guy. I think all the other guys are out somewhere partying or something. I don't know. How about fall? There you go. There's 40 to 60. Don't worry, Ed, you're not in it. Okay, and then 60 and beyond. Now you got wow. Yeah, that's great. Bill, yeah, thank you, Bill, finally. I knew that. Okay, so that's good to know. I don't have to worry about talking about spring too much, but I will. The purpose in tonight was just to let you guys get to know me better, and what I was going to do was I was just going to take a key verse in each season of my life that really, I look back and reflect on those 3 seasons and the season I'm in. And there's a verse in each one of those seasons that I've kind of just identified with and been my verse there. But I just want to warn you that some of the time frames of each season in my life overlap a little bit. They're not exactly perfect like they were, like we saw last week. So let me start out with spring. So I was born in 1954. My father was a retired colonel in the Army who married a young Japanese girl 25 years younger than him. And he was 52. So, I didn't think that was weird when I was a kid, but now I look back on it, that was weird. And he was also an alcoholic. And she was an atom bomb survivor, full-blooded Japanese. He's colonel in the Army, and she was in Hiroshima. She was 4 miles from the blast site. The whole family was, but they lived on the backside of a mountain, and that's what saved them all. But still, it was obviously horrific for her as she was like 8 years old or something like that. My childhood was really bad. Lots of fighting in the house, lots of turmoil. When I was 8, my mom sent me downstairs one day to get my dad and tell him that dinner was ready. I went down and he used to had a room downstairs that he'd sit in, and a lot of times he'd drink. So he's sitting in the middle of the room, asleep with a bottle of Jim Beam in his hand, and I'm trying to wake him up, and he didn't wake up. So I went up and told my mom, I said, "You're not waking up." Well, he was dead. He basically drank himself to death and was dead in that chair. So that changed everything for me as a young 8-year-old, right? Losing your dad like that. Didn't really quite get it back then. But so my mom eventually remarried, and we moved a couple of times and came to Millbrae, but the problem was that she married a retired Navy guy, and this guy was also an alcoholic. He was the kind of alcoholic that came home from work had a couple of drinks, or like 5 or 6 drinks, and then, he seemed like he was all right, but he really wasn't. If you had to live with him, he was pretty tough to live with. He didn't have any parenting skills, didn't know anything about raising a kid, and he had this little terror in me. So the first time I met him, we went to his house to have lunch. I used to watch cartoons all the time, and he was getting ready to sit down. I thought, I'm going to pull the chair out from underneath him, and I pull the chair away. He goes to sit down, misses the chair, falls down, hits his head on the cabinet behind him, and he's split his back of his head open. And I'm sitting there laughing. 8-year-old kid, I'm laughing. I thought it was funny, but he didn't think it was funny. That was the beginning of my relationship with my stepfather, and it was pretty tough after that. So eventually we moved to beautiful Millbrae. We lived out on Seal Rock Drive in the city those first 8 years, and then moved around into Sunset and stuff, but came to Millbrae, and I finally realized there was sun somewhere in the world, after leaving. I never saw the sun that much up there, but came down here, and, I wanted to be accepted by the other kids, so, I'd steal booze from my stepfather and drink with them. We were like 5th and 6th, 7th grade. Was in trouble already, really started out poorly. I should have known that all that stuff was bad. The first thing I really did when I was little was I decided I was going to smoke. So I got underneath the bed in my bedroom, and I lit one of my mom's cigarettes and set the bed on, the netting, set the bed on fire. Stepfather comes in, I'm trying to put the fire out, and he winds up throwing the mattress out the window. Don't you wish you don't have a kids like I was, huh? So I was always in trouble, and even at a young age, started in bad relationships with girls, and was wild and crazy. And when I got into high school, this really tells how bad it was. I had like 4 kind of accidents each year in high school. The first one was me and a bunch of guys had done some drugs, and we were going to hyperventilate, and the guy was supposed to catch me when you I don't know if you guys know what that was, but it was ridiculously stupid. Basically, knock yourself out. The guy didn't catch me, and I fell forward and knocked my front teeth out. So that was freshman year. And sophomore year, I used to mow the neighbor's lawn. And so smoked a joint with my friend, went to mow his lawn, went to go adjust the sides of the lawnmower with the lawnmower running, lost 2 fingers. The junior year, dove off a roof into a swimming pool, drunk, into the shallow end, and dislocated my shoulder up into my collarbone all the way over to here. They barely could get it back into place. And then as I graduated from high school, my buddy was fighting with his girlfriend, and I was trying to be the peacemaker, and I was running through a hotel, and I went through a plate glass window and got 200 stitches and almost bled to death. So, needless to say, I was all, I don't know how my mom made it, I was just always screwed up, but I thought I was okay. I thought things were good, the guys I were hanging with, they thought it was all fine. And, but obviously it wasn't. So when I got out of high school, I wound up going to CSM because I could get the GI Bill from my dad. And went to CSM, thought I wanted to be an architect, found out that, I think I want to be something else. I couldn't be cooped up in an office. So I got my AA degree. Obviously, I wasn't a Christian yet, had no religious background whatsoever. But there was this old woman that lived next door when I lived on Seal Rock Drive when I was younger, and her name was Emma. And we used to walk from Seal Rock Drive down to I think it was 33rd and Clement. Some of you guys who know the city, you know there's a Presbyterian church right there. I think it's a Presbyterian church. And we'd walk all that way, and she'd take me to Sunday. She'd drop me off in Sunday school and come back. Well, she was obviously a believer. She was always, I think she saw what a desperate need I had for Christ. And I know she prayed for me, but it's still, you couldn't see anything yet. So a verse that kind of defines my life in this season, if we could put that up, is Proverbs 16:9. In their heads, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. And that was exactly what I was, that was me. I thought, I had it all. That was on the back end of that verse, in the front of that verse, it talks about how in your heart you think you're going the right way. And, I thought I was doing good, but obviously I wasn't. But the Lord was always there even in my foolishness and my unbelief, right? So I was proud. I thought I had it together. I was very selfish and prideful, and I was a fool back then in that first spring part of my life. So my lesson from that season was that I was starting to learn is that the Lord was in control, not me. I was starting to realize that maybe I wasn't doing as good a job as I thought, but I wasn't there yet. So then the summer part of my life, the second part, 20 to 40 roughly, I started working as a carpenter. I got in a union, became an apprentice carpenter, and worked for my neighbor across the street who was a contractor. And he was an Italian guy. You guys might know some guys like this. A real nice Italian guy until he got mad. Oh man, he'd go berserk. And I didn't have a whole lot of self-confidence. I mean, who does at a young age, right? But that guy would just tear you up if you made a mistake. And then a minute and a half later, he'd go, hey, you want a donut and a cup of coffee? Like nothing happened. And you'd sitting there going, what the, you just destroyed me, right? So one day, I just lost it with him, and I wound up throwing a hammer at him. I missed him, but the hammer went through a double sheetrock wall into another room. It's a good thing it didn't hit him. I just completely lost it, and I walked out, and I walked all the way from the end of Grand Avenue all the way to the freeway almost before I even realized where I was. I was still in my overalls and everything. I was so mad and upset. So obviously, I had a lot of issues, I was headed down the wrong path. I was partying too much and doing a lot of bad stuff. I was totally lost. And also, something that they mentioned in this season, in the video last week that was really good, but they didn't hit on it really big, but when they talked about handling your sexual energy, he talked about it was either going to be your friend or your master, if you guys remember. Well, it was my master. I thought it was my friend, really, but it wasn't. It's my master. And guys, here's one thing I can say just from being an old guy and seeing a lot of, and going through a lot of the same kind of stuff, is this is one thing you got to get out of if you're having issues with sexual stuff, pornography or anything like that. If you guys have issues with any of that, you need to get out of it now, because it's just going to destroy you and it's going to hurt you. And you reap what you sow too. As you get older, you'll reap a bad harvest from all that stuff. So, I know a lot of guys are fighting it. Hopefully not a lot of you are, but if you are, and you're coming to Men's Frat, you got guys sitting at your tables that would gladly help you through that, and probably maybe even dealing with the same stuff you're dealing with and you don't even know it. And I know how hard it is to probably bring that up and talk to them, but that's exactly what you got to do. That might be the sole purpose in you guys being at Men's Frat for all I know. You need to deal with this one. And you got a guy in Sebastian back there that runs a ministry in this church for guys like that. You might not even know about that, but if you're fighting that issue and you don't want to talk to anybody, it's hard. It's hard, but it's killing our society, it's killing our churches, it's killing our men. It just stops guys dead. The Lord has great plans for you, but if you're fighting this one, you're not going to go too far. So guys, just a side note, if you're fighting that, you got guys here that can help you. And there's not a guy here that you couldn't talk to that wouldn't be sensitive to this and be able to help you, pray for you, help you to stay accountable, whatever it takes. When I eventually met my wife at an Elvin Bishop concert at Stanford, man, I had this super bad hangover too. It was a Sunday. And I went to this Elvin Bishop concert, and this gal with these blue eyes came walking up, and with a bunch of friends of ours, and I thought, wow, who's this? And so I started talking to her, and you can put that picture up. So I mentioned that. Yeah, I still look like that, right? Huh? Don't I? Huh? Yeah. I don't know. I debated about putting that up there, but I thought you guys would get a laugh out of it. So anyway, yeah, that's what people look like 100 years ago. So we dated for like 3 years. She wanted to get married, and I was pretty stupid. I didn't see any of my buddies that were married that were happy. They were talking about non-Christian guys who are cheating on their wives, and I didn't see it working. So I was reluctant to get married. What a mistake. The 3 or 4 years were like, I would say 3 years, she would say 4 years. So, but whatever the amount of time was exactly, it was a wasted time because I just was afraid to get married. And I was also starting to question life at this time. I had a good friend, a family that I knew. This gal, Joan, she had like eight kids, and all the boys were wild, and we used to drink together. And the girls there was an Irish family, the Thorntons, and but this mom was a single mom with 8 wild kids. Dated one of the daughters, was friends with the brothers, and I was close to the family, but I really respected this woman. She did a great job in raising those kids as best as she could. And she was in real estate, so she was helping me and the guy that I owned me and another carpenter bought a house when we were young, and I was going to buy him out as me and Jeanette did finally get married. And so I was sitting on my couch in the living room, and we were working out this deal on how we were going to settle, how much I was going to pay him. And I looked at her and I says, "Geez, Joan, what's the purpose in life anyway? I'm gonna work the next 25 years. I was a journeyman carpenter. I'm gonna work 25 years, gonna retire, buy a Winnebago, drive around, and have a heart attack. Now, what's the purpose in life?" Well, she was a Christian, right? And she goes, "Frank, that's a great question. I think the answers are in the Bible." I'm going, "Oh, I don't want to hear that. Yeah, whatever, Joan, that's fine." But she just looked me in the eyes. She was a tough-minded woman. She looked me in the eyes. She goes, "Well, you asked the question." And I was like, yeah, I guess I did. So she said, "And we just so happen to be starting a Bible study in the book of John at our house." It's like, oh, how convenient that is. So why don't you come? So I said, okay, I'll go. A lot of it was, I thought it was out of respect for her, but literally, you guys know what was going on. The Word was just working, right? So I go to the Bible study, and I hear all this great stuff about Jesus. I go, oh, okay, now I see. Yeah, that's good, and I was starting to understand a little bit more about him. Nothing was going on down here yet, until May 15th, 1980. Am I this old? Does anybody know what happened on that date? Who said that? Yeah, good. Mount St. Helens. That's only because you're from the Pacific Northwest. Oh, yeah. You probably know when the Seattle Seahawks started, too. Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to ruin my talk talking about those guys. But anyway, that mountain blew. And that place, I in my mind at that time, newly married too. I thought that place was heaven on earth because I had been invited to become a guide up there, fishing guide up there, to build drift boats, I was going to build a house right on the river, and it looked like it was heaven on earth to me. It really was. And in a split second, kaboom. If we would have lived in the house where I wanted to build it, we would have been dead before we knew what happened. And all of a sudden, it hit me that I wasn't in control of nothing, that somebody else was in control of my life besides me. So I just basically pretty much dropped to my knees and just said, Lord, you know what? I've screwed up my whole life. And you're in control of everything anyway, so I'm going to give my life to you. With the eruption of Mount St. Helens and what I had heard about Jesus, those things just came together, and the Lord saved me. It still amazes me because I was a mess. I was in bad shape. So, but the Lord saved me. So it was great. I repented, and obviously, right away, Joan had a church for me to join. So I joined the church and started another while we were in that Bible study, and then we're in a young married Sunday school class with a bunch of great couples, and I started helping with junior high and high school and all that stuff. But at the same time, Jeanette and I were struggling with infertility, and we're trying to have our first child, and it wasn't happening. And it was pretty tough to go through that. But finally, we had our first child, and I was thankful that we had this healthy, great daughter, and I got a new job from the Lord during that time, and a guy that was in that Sunday school class, I was between jobs. He said, "You ever driven a concrete truck before?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Why don't you come in and check it out?" And 4 days later, I was hauling a load of concrete over Devil's Slides, Half Moon Bay, thinking I was going to wet my pants. Yeah. That job, it was a great job, but it literally taught me how to pray without ceasing. I am not kidding, man. I on the side of hills in the wintertime, sliding around and not knowing if you were going to roll the truck all the time. I mean, they are kind of dangerous, but it was good for me. So I eventually became an elder in that church, believe it or not. I think that was a big mistake, but the church was actually having some major issues, and they were desperate. So eventually, things all fell apart there, and it got real bad and real difficult, and the pastor and I both resigned and left that church. But the CPC elders kind of came and tried to help us through that time, and they really helped us see things clearly as they were going on. That's why me and the pastor both pretty much resigned. And those guys, I really respected them. I love the fact that they were such good, wise men. And they told me, said, "Hey, just come to CPC in Foster City and just relax and heal up from all this stuff." And I said, "Okay." So I did. I went down there, and eventually it worked out, that I started to heal from that, but instantly got involved in ministry down there. I loved CPC, and I became a community group leader there under Mitchell when Mitchell was young, and I had new relationships, was in a healthy church, and was eventually asked to become an elder there and to serve with them. And it was fantastic. I was amazed that they even wanted a guy like me, because I was the only blue collar elder ever at CBC for a long time. Those guys were like doctors, and Brandon's running Apple and all this. It was amazing, but God had a plan. And also in that time, there should be another slide after this one. What's that next slide? That's a slide of, okay, that's good. So even though I wanted a bigger family, we wound up going through the infertility again, and finally decided to adopt, and we adopted 2 great kids. So then all of a sudden we had a family of 3. So that's the next slide, I think. There you go. So the one in the middle, the cute one, that's his wife right there. That's Brianna. That's the oldest one. And Bethany is on the right, and Emmett's on the left there. And so we had 3 great kids, and things were going well. And I'm an elder in this church, and I'm learning a lot more than I ever thought I could ever learn. And that should tell you guys something. If you think every elder has everything all figured out, that's not really true. Guys, it's a process for elders just like it is for everybody else. So anyway, and that was like 20, 25 years ago or something. It was a while back. And it was a great time of learning in my life for me. And I had a purpose, and I realized that God was calling me to something that I needed to do, and I kind of stepped out in faith, because I was really never sure that I could do anything like that. And but Jesus had completely turned around my life, and he taught me more and more each day about loving people, and he was trying to teach me about grace. So the verse for this season of my life would be a verse that's really familiar to you guys. It's like my life's verse. That's Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, which is, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight." So I learned to trust Jesus, not myself anymore, although I fell into that trap all the time. I submitted to him and not myself. Try to always ask what he wanted me to do. And I also learned not to worry about things. You know, I was trying to go down the right path, and I knew that he was going to take me down the straight path, but that doesn't always mean it's going to be easy, right? But I just figured I'm going to try not to worry. You know, in the video last week, if you remember that Crawford Lorich spoke, I don't know how familiar you guys are with him. He's an unbelievable speaker, and I think his son is now too. But he's an unbelievable speaker. But if you remember, he talked about the learning about brokenness and learning what brokenness was. I was gonna start to learn that, and it was coming. But my lesson in that season of my life in the summer was humility, to be humble and teachable. I mean, those are two characteristics for a man that if there's anything that you guys learn tonight, those two things are super valuable as a man. I mean, the biggest issue we got here in this room right tonight is pride. It's the major problem. It's always the major problem, right? So the sooner you learn to humble yourself, the quicker things will be a little bit better, and you'll walk with the Lord even closer than you do now. And then be teachable. I mean, I was learning right here, and it's great that was what they were focusing in on in this season too. But you learn all this stuff, but you won't learn that stuff if you think you got it all figured out. If you think that okay, that's good stuff on Sunday, man, Rob preached a great message, that's good, and you walk out of here and it's gone, that's not helping. I mean, the Lord wants to change you, and he's going to do it by the power of his word. You gotta be teachable, though. If you don't take that seriously, you really need to. It'll really help you out as a guy, as a man, to live your life better for Christ. So in the fall, 40 to 60, you know, I had a family, 3 kids, great job, great wife, was an elder in a great church. I remodeled my house because all of a sudden we had 3 kids now. And I had a little 900 square foot house in San Bruno, so I remodeled that with the help of of a contractor friend of mine, and what little knowledge I have of being a carpenter. Together we did that, but I had to work through that. So basically, I was working during the day doing that, and at night I went to work. We were doing the retrofit on the San Mateo Bridge at night. So I go to work at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, work all the way through the night till like 5, 6, 7 in the morning, come home, sleep for 2 hours, work on the house, and then go back to work that night after a couple hours after dinner. So what that got me was high blood pressure. It was, get ready for that, some of you. But you know what the thing about that is all of a sudden I realized, wait a minute, man, I'm not invincible anymore. You know, it's catching up to me a little bit. I can't do everything. So there was some more stuff coming. We found out that my son, Emmett, had severe ADHD. I knew this was going to be hard to get through this one. He had severe ADHD, and it was totally brutal. You know, trying to decide just to even think about him taking meds, had to go through that process, then got him on meds, then trying to figure out the right meds. They were changing all the time, diagnoses, trouble in school. He was always in trouble at school. He was trouble at home, caused chaos in the house. It was challenging, depressing, tough, discouraging, to the point that I told the guy, and the guys on the board, they knew all about it, and they were praying and helping me work through some of that stuff. But the stuff was brutal. There wasn't a lot of whole, real solid answers to help us through that time. The Lord was the answer, but just trying to figure out how that worked was tough. So I finally went to the guys and said, hey, I need time off, the elder board. There's no way I can elder with this going on. So I started out trying to resign, and they wouldn't let me. They just said, no, you're going through a tough season. It's going to work out. I go, I was looking for a way out because it was bad. It was really tough. And they said, no, let's just hang in there. So I had really this was the process the Lord used to totally teach me about brokenness. And all this other stuff, this caused my middle daughter to start having some serious issues. Both the adoptive kids were struggling. It was really, and it wasn't I couldn't get a lot of solid answers on how to fix it. It was tough. There's probably some guys sitting here tonight that have either been in this boat or they're in this boat some way. Not maybe the exact one, but you're having struggles that nobody else knows about. You know what, guys? All I can say is you got an enemy out there who's working you over, first of all. I don't want to give him too much credit, but you got to realize that, I had him talking in my ear all the time about, if you would have done this, if you would have done that, he wouldn't be like this. The lies that came, and when you're hurting, it's easy to believe that stuff. His voice gets louder if you let it. But the Lord was also there too, and it caused me to trust in him and go to my knees and plead for Christ's help. A lot of times I didn't feel like he was there. Some of you guys know what that's like. But the Lord was there. He eventually worked things out. I never thought I was going to come out of it. And just like some of you guys are going through difficult times, you think, man, this is never going to end. It does. It will end. But you just got to hang in there, and you got to keep trusting the Lord. There was good things happening at the same time that all this other stuff was going on. My daughter met this goofball over here and wound up marrying him. And I got a great son-in-law in Vic, and they had their first 2 grandkids in this season. And it was a new stage of life, and it was just fantastic. The Lord does great. Sometimes you go through difficult times, but he always gives you something else to kind of keep you hanging in there. He'll give you blessings along the way to kind of keep you from going off the rails completely, if you're looking for them. Sometimes you'll just kind of, I just want to go off the rails, but good stuff was also happening. I got back on the elder board, and we started trying to figure out what we were going to do with all these people who are coming to Foster City, right? So we started the North Campus. And the way the timing was bizarre. I was off for those 2 years. The elders made the decision. It was fantastic, because whenever we talked about the next campus, it was always going to be in Redwood City, San Carlos, always. And I was going, hey, there's nothing between Foster City and San Francisco like us. Yeah, Frank, that's great. And then, so when we start the campus down, it's like, wait a minute, what about? I got pulled off the board, and all of a sudden the Lord swung those guys around, and they came. John Brandon came to me one day. He goes, you're not going to believe this. We're going to start a campus. I go, that's great. And he goes, you're not going to believe where. And I go, yeah, what, Redwood City or something like that? No, Millbrae. It's like, he goes, a meeting at Mills High School, where I graduated. And the first Sunday that we started, I was standing on that stage. The last time I stood on that stage was grad night, and I dropped acid that night on that stage. You talk about the Lord having a sense of humor. I was up there, I'm doing announcements and everything, and I'm going, the last time I was here, I was, but anyway, it's just the way the Lord works. It was fantastic. But also at that same time, they hired Rob. And also John came up to me, he goes, he's so wise too, he goes, we just interviewed a guy, Frank, and he goes, when you meet this guy, I got a feeling you two guys are going to be like that. And he was exactly right. Rob, it's good he's not here tonight, because I don't want him to hear this. But no, anyway, when he talked about friendship, he surprised me when he was talking about our friendship. But he didn't surprise me, but I was surprised he had said it here. But it's the same for me. We have the same, we've got a lot of the same heart and love for what the Lord's doing here in this area. And we've always been super, super close, and I just love the fact that the Lord kind of knit us together. So my verse for this season is 1 Corinthians 16, 13 through 14. Be on your guard, stand firm in the faith, be courageous, be strong, do everything in love. In this season, I've had influence, I've had adversity, an enemy that was standing there opposing all of that, blessings. And, I thought before in this season, I thought I understood grace going into this season. I didn't really understand grace. I had to go through a lot of that stuff before I could really understand what true grace was and how to love people truly. So 2 lessons from this season. Don't isolate yourselves. Don't go it alone. When I took that 2 years off, I tried to start to go through it alone, and I was going to blow myself up by doing that. The Lord revealed to me really quickly that I needed those guys really involved with me because I needed my brothers. You guys need your brothers too. You guys need the guys that are sitting at these tables with you. You need relationships with other guys to help you through difficult times and good times. It's really super important that you don't isolate because that's exactly what men do. We like to go to the basement and shut the door and isolate ourselves. Not a good idea. Not at all. That's not the way the Lord set it up. You need to depend on one another and help one another to get through those kind of times. The second thing that I learned is whenever you're going through issues and you're trying to work things out and you're looking, we have this, men are so great because it's like, okay, we got this issue, man. I'm going to fix this thing. I'm going to walk right into this and I'm going to figure it out, right? And you try to figure out what you're going to do, who you're going to help, how I'm going to change my wife and my kids and do all this stuff, right? Well, reality is you got a lot to say about that, but ultimately that's going to be the Lord's work anyway. And while we're focused straight ahead, sometimes we miss out on the fact that the Lord's standing behind us and he wants us to do something about ourselves. So that's a great question. I learned this later in this season that I needed to not be so focused on the issue or the thing that I was so worried about, but Lord, what are you trying to teach me through this? What do I need to do that's better? What part of my life is so messed up that I think I could work this one out when I need issue? And that's all you can really do anyways. You can work on yourself. You could work with the Lord and he can help you to work through it. So that was that. Then now we come to wintertime. And that's the season I'm in now. So I had a real simple retirement plan. I was going to spend more time with my family and my kids and my grandkids, and I was going to spend some more time here. And as we were especially in this new phase of New North, and then I also was going to fish, and because that's what I like. I like to do that. But the big thing about fishing that I really realized, don't get me wrong, I love catching fish. And anybody who's been here has fished with me knows that. But I also like the part of spending time with other guys. Sometimes guys I don't even know hardly, and I've just become friends with. Guys that are non-Christians, Christians, and just that time with guys is a great time. It's a great opportunity to share with other guys. So I had those three things. You guys, there's some pictures up here. The picture of my grandkids. Thank God they don't look like their father, but they're great kids, man. They're great kids, and I just love them to death. So I got 4 fantastic grandchildren. Just if you make it to this winter part of your life and you have grandkids, the Bible says it's part of the blessing of making it to this age. And it's so true. And I don't deserve it, but boy, they are fun. And then also there's another picture behind this one. I just put this one up to make John Lowe feel bad, So,
Is that bait?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. You're not going to get any of it now. No, but so that's the Chetco River. So I like to go fishing. That's all that picture's saying. And I've got all this. I've got margin in my life now and flexibility. But let me tell you guys something, man. You know that retirement's not biblical. You know, you're not going to find anything in the Bible that's going to talk about retirement. It's not there. If you guys find it, show me. You'll see transition in men's lives, but you don't see retirement. So the thing you want to do here, man, is you want to be thinking about these years now. I don't know what season, you know, whatever season you're in, you need to start thinking about what's this season going to look like? What am I going to do when I get older? And, you know, not sit around and watch TV and do whatever it may be, you know, play golf every day or whatever it is. I mean, you need to use your gifts and contribute to your families and people around you and relationships with others. You need to mentor others. I mean, being at Men's Frat, I was already getting convicted of this. I knew it was going to happen, that I was going to do a little bit more time with guys. So right now, I just started a small accountability group with a couple of guys, and I'm thinking about starting a small men's group on Saturday morning at my house in my garage. I mean, I'm not really that formal, guys, so I don't want to. I'm not going to do it upstairs. I'm going to do it in my garage. This is going to call it a man cave ministry, and we're just going to do the things you do. You know, spend time sharing with one another. We're going to go through some scripture, and it's not going to be real difficult, but it's going to be a time where guys can share each other's lives together. And you know, something to remember as you hear all this stuff about what God's done in my life. I'm telling you, if He can use me for His kingdom, He can use everybody here for His kingdom. Don't ever think that you can't be used by God in any way because of anything that's happened in your past or things that are going on now. You can alleviate those problems you're struggling with now. You're forgiven for the past. You need to take advantage of the opportunity you have now because, you know, God wants to use you, and He certainly will. He's doing that with a lot of you guys, but just don't think that you know you're just going to relax when you're older. The verse for this season that I have is this last verse here in Ecclesiastes 7:2. This is going to sound like a little bit of a weird verse, but believe me, it's one that keeps coming back at me. And it says, "It is better to go to a house of mourning than to go to a house of feasting. For death is the destiny of everyone. The living should take this to heart." Now, I'll tell you what, guys. You've heard old people say, "I'm going to more funerals than weddings." That's this season. That's what's happening. As you get older, it'll be good, but this is reality right here. The somber reminder of this season is that you're going to depart pretty soon. You know, the reality is you're either going to be at my memorial service pretty quick, or I'm going to be at yours. You're not going to be here forever. So, what are you going to do about it? Life to death and eternity is the ultimate transition. It's that ultimate transition to the next world, you know, or to eternity. So how are you managing that in your life? What are you doing right now as you think through about what your life is right now? How are you managing that? Are you just living life and trying to get through each day? Or are you intentionally making decisions that's going to help you to make your life more valuable for the kingdom? My big lesson so far, because I'm not dead yet, my lesson is see the bigger picture and don't waste time. Think about the bigger picture of life in general and about your life. And don't waste time. Don't waste time. You know, I didn't really mean to, but kind of consciously this year, I've decided I'm just not going to watch so much TV. You know, not besides the fact that most of it's garbage. I'm wasting a lot of time. You know, so except for the playoffs. But anyway, you know, you want to navigate well through this season. You know, I've actually got two boats. I'll admit my sin, but I've got a drift boat that you row. You go down a piece of river 8 or 10 miles and you row all your way down and you fish for steelhead and salmon. And the thing while you're going down the river is you have to negotiate the river as it's winding and going faster and slower, whatever, all the obstacles. One of the great principles of rowing a drift boat is, it's a basic principle, is you got to keep the bow pointed at the obstruction. If there's something in front of you that you want to be able to get away from, you got to be headed right towards it and on the oars ready to pull away from it. If you don't, if you let the current turn you one way or the other, bang, you're into the trees, into the brush, you're drowned. You could be drowned, you know? So you want to be focused and you want to be intentional about your lives. And now's the time to do that. I know a lot of you guys are doing that. But, you know, the Lord really wants us to step it up a little bit. And if you're here at Men's Frat, here's the application for all this stuff I've said. If you're here at Men's Frat and you're at New North, you're a part of New North, let me just preface this with a little thought I had. When I was 8 years old, when I came to Millbrae, everything looked so beautiful. All the houses were nice. Everybody looked like, you know, everything, they had it all together. Then as I got to know the kids, I realized they were all screwed up. The families were screwed up. The abuse was going on. There was pain. There was agony everywhere behind the beautiful house doors. That still exists on the peninsula. It's even more scary now the way it is, right? We live in this little piece of the world that is just crazy. But we have a golden opportunity here in a new church on this little strip of the peninsula to make an impact for the kingdom of God. And you know what? God he's going to do it, but he wants to use everybody here. We got to have the men here in this church step up. And you guys, I don't want you to ignore your families or anything like that. You have to think through, though. Everybody has a calling here at CPC. That was a big mistake. At New North. Oh, boy, it's a good thing Rob's not here. But you know, you guys have gifts. You guys are totally, you have a spiritual gift. You have great gifts that can be used for the kingdom. Some of you know what that gift is. Some of you are using those gifts to the ultimate. Others of you are kind of like, well, you know, as soon as I get to this certain place in life, as soon as I got enough money, as soon as I get this and that. No, you might not have that. We need to do it now. We got this golden opportunity to step up and follow God, trust him, and he's got some amazing, I don't know all the things he's got, but he's got some amazing things for us. He didn't get this church going like this for nothing. And he needs the men. He needs men to step up into those spots and to help that move forward. And, you know, we want to do that because we love the people around here too. So no matter what season you're in, it's time to go and to move for Jesus, and the time is now. So, you know, follow your calling, guys, because the Lord's up to something here. If you're here, you're going to get called on by him, first of all, and then probably by some of the rest of us after that. So let's just kind of move forward here. Gosh, man, went typical fashion. I talked too long. I was going to have Chester have an open mic. If you guys had any questions for me, I was going to let you ask me any of those questions about any of the stuff I just said. But if you don't have any questions, you get to go home early. Or we can spend time at your tables praying. But does anybody have anything that they'd like to ask about any of that stuff that was said? Or